Good morning. Thank you all for helping handing out the orders of service. It was a lovely welcome everyone got, having your smiling faces there. So thank you for being here. Well, this morning's story, and I want to say, when I say all ages, it's all ages. I mean, you're welcome to come if your knees will let you do it. Mine might not, that's why I'm sitting in a seat. But this is one of my favorite stories from our Universalist tradition. And I hope you like it, but it's about this young man, well, he's a boy at the time, called Hosea Ballou. And he lived about over 200 years ago. And he lived in a state called New Hampshire, and he grew up in a farm. And who's been to a farm? No? Come on, thank you. They're not listening. But the thing about a farm, now, I grew up in Scotland, and Scotland is a very, very wet place. So if we ever went to the farm, there was a lot of mud. Who likes mud? Yay! Do you not like mud? No? Oh, well, Hosea Ballou, he loved mud. But Hosea Ballou had a big family, but when he was young, it was really sad. His mother died. And his older sisters looked after him. He had like 8 sisters, and he was the only boy. But he loved playing in the mud, and they all had different chores to do. And Hosea's chore was cleaning out the pigsty. Now, who's seen pigs? Pigs love mud. And I love pigs as well. Any of you last year, did you see the little piglets last year? Remember, that was fun when we did that last year. Well, we're doing it again next month. Have you? April 6th. And have we a piglet? Yay! So we'll get a chance to play in mud on April 6th, but don't tell your parents, okay? So Hosea Ballou absolutely loved playing in the mud. But the fact is, it was his sister who had to wash his clothes. And so his clothes would get really muddy, and his sister would get so annoyed, because this was 200 years ago. This was well before there was any, washing machines like we had. She had to wash it by hand. So she would get really mad that you would have to clean up all the mud. So she went to the father and said, Hosea's playing in the mud again. Please tell him to stop playing in the mud. So the father would call Hosea in, was very stern, and said, Hosea, you playing in the mud again? Hosea looked sheepish and said, yes. What have I told you about playing in the mud? Not to do it. And why not? Because it creates a lot of work for my sister to do it. And he said, will you play in the mud again? And Hosea said, no. But then Hosea was cleaning out the pigsties. He got all muddy, and he thought, I'm already muddy from the work. I may as well play in the mud. Kind of makes sense. Really? No? Well, makes sense to me. And so he played in the mud. But then his sister was mad again because she had to wash his clothes. So she went to the dad furious and said, Hosea's playing in the mud again. Can you get him to stop? So his dad called him in and was really, really angry and said, Hosea, I told you not to play in the mud. You said you weren't going to. Why did you? And he said, oh, I'm sorry, Dad. And Hosea, and Dad was really angry with him and said, that's terrible, please don't do that. And then Hosea looked at his dad, and he's like kind of tears in his eyes, and he said, Dad, do you still love me? And, his dad was taken aback. He goes, oh, Hosea, I'm mad at you, your sister's at you, mad at you, but we will always love you even when we're mad at you. And so when Hosea grew up, he became the founder of the Universalist side of our tradition. And he thought, if his dad could still love him, even though he was mad, then God must always love us. And that was his message of universalism, that at that time there was a lot of talk about God being judgmental and punishing. And Hosea said, that's not right. We are always loved and we are always lovable. And he always traces that back to when his father, even though he was angry with him, still loved him. And I think that's a really powerful story. So thank you so much for listening. It's time for your religious education classes last night.
May you be safe from inner and outer harm. May you be happy with joy in your heart. May you be healthy and strong in your body. May your life flow with peace and with ease. These are the words of a Buddhist loving-kindness meditation, also known as a metta meditation practice. Many of you may be familiar with these words. In the Buddhist tradition, we say these words to ourselves, to someone we love, to a stranger, to a difficult person, and finally, to all beings. Through offering these words, I'm often able to find a peace with myself that can guide me through tough times, especially with difficult people. In offering love to someone with whom I'm struggling, it helps me to let go of the judgment and anger that I have been holding on to too tightly. And really, if that difficult person was happy with joy in their heart, healthy and strong in their body, and living a life of peace and of ease, they probably would be a lot less annoying. It makes sense to wish these things for them, and in turn free myself from the negative feelings that have been tormenting me, and only me. I sometimes spend the day offering loving kindness to everyone I see. Don't worry, I don't do it out loud. As I walk down the street, I look at the strangers that pass me by, and I think to myself, may you be well. I do this at work, at meetings, with friends, with family, with everyone I see that day. And the most amazing thing happens. People feel it. They look up, they smile, their body language changes just a little. Let's give it a try for a moment. Look around, pick someone out in this room, or if you're on Zoom, pick out someone in a little square, and think to yourself, may you be well. You don't have to make eye contact. Just send them some silent, loving kindness. And now, let's send some loving kindness to the world. I invite you to close your eyes and repeat the following phrases in your mind after I say them. May all beings be safe from inner and outer harm. Silently to yourself. May all beings be happy with joy in their heart. May all beings be healthy and strong in their body. May all beings live a life that flows with peace and with ease. You can open your eyes. The theme of today's worship asks the question, can we trust love to guide us? My answer is yes. I do believe that by offering loving kindness freely to myself and to all beings, that love can guide me to my own peace and happiness. And imagine a world where everyone did that, where we all felt love for ourselves and others. That is a world that I want to live in.
Can I really trust that love is enough? Liz gave you her answer. She's a lot more definitive about it than I am. I'm struggling right now. I know when we do check-ins at meetings, I say, I'm doing well. And yet, when I say that, there's a guilt. I know there are so many people in our country struggling right now. I know so many people in our country are living in fear. And is love enough? I have deep, deep concern. I have deep concern about the state of our country. I have deep, deep concern about the state of the world. And it can be naive to think that love is enough. Given the profound challenges to our democracy, withdrawal of services to the most vulnerable in our community, increased economic inequality, and that existential threat of climate change. And yet, last year at the General Assembly, we voted as a religious movement to place love at the center of who we are. And it says in Article 2 of our bylaws, love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. And those shared values are pluralism, interdependence, generosity, justice, equity, and transformation. So let's explore if that spiritual discipline of love, and that was a controversial term, saying the spiritual discipline. But I liked it because it was a commitment. Because loving the world, holding everyone in love is not easy. Because people are people. And they people. And it can be very annoying. And that's where the challenge is. It's not just that they're annoying. People do mean things. People do terrible things. People hurt our neighbours. People target vulnerable people in our community and beyond. And that hurts us. Because if we truly hold everyone in love, then when they hurt someone else, it hurts us. And I know some of us in Unitarian Universalists struggle with this idea of love at the center, because what do we mean by love? And we go to this romantic idea of love. I love what the great African-American writer James Baldwin said. He said, the longer I live, the more deeply I learn that love, whether we call it friendship, family, or romance, is the work of mirroring and magnifying each other's light. That love is the work of mirroring and magnifying each other's light. And you can only do that in relationship. You cannot do that as an individual. And I think part of the problem with the word love, it gets overloaded in English. Because if you actually look at the original Greek, where the idea of religious spiritual love comes from, which is the Christian New Testament, there's 4 words for love. Eros, erotic, passionate, sexual love. Philia, love of friends and family. Storge, love of parents and children. And then agape, agape love. Love of humanity for one another. And the essence of agape love, and that's the spiritual religious love that's at the center of Unitarian Universalism, is goodwill, benevolence, commitment, and an act of will. And responding to life's challenges with curiosity and not judgment. Responding with curiosity, not judgment when challenged, and experiencing the unexpected. Well, the Daily News is challenging me with the unexpected every day. And I know as Unitarian Universalists, we don't believe in literal heaven and hell. But when I watch the news, I go, what the hell? And it seemed like an appropriate response. But the Universalist core of our tradition, I mentioned Hosea below, during the time for all ages, this idea of the love of all humanity at the center of our religion. This is not love of, this is love of all humanity. This is not putting humanity at the center of religion. It's putting love of all humanity at the center of religion. And that's a big difference. And the great 19th century Unitarian minister and writer Ralph Waldo Emerson said this. He said, "Within us is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty to which every part and particle is equally related, the eternal one. When it breaks through our intellect, it's genius. When it breaks through our will, it is virtue. When it breaks through our affections, it is love. When it breaks through our affections, it's love." And our Unitarian Universalist religious and historical commitments to freedom and love reflect an enduring trust in human agency. We can make a difference. And human potential both for good and for bad. And that trust in that human potential for good reflects our commitment to democracy. And part of the statement that we approved as a religious movement last year in Article 2 was, we support use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions within our congregations and our association and society at large. And whenever we trust another, we are committing to love them, to show them goodwill, to show them trust, because love and trust appear together. Joseph Campbell, the great writer of mythology, said, "The problem for and the function of religion in this age is to awaken the heart." To awaken the heart. And I do believe that the purpose of religion is to awaken our heart. I remember many years ago at one of my previous congregations, I was leading a time for all ages, and I asked, "What's the purpose of the human heart?" And one of the 8-year-old boys there said, "Is to pump love through the body." To pump love through the body. I love that. And then let's take that, as a minister, I can be any good metaphor to death. What does that mean for a religious community? What's the purpose of religious community? Are we the heart of this community? To pump love through the wider community, to pump love through San Mateo County. We heard some of that when Liz was talking about Cara. Those acts walking people through grief is an act of love, of goodwill, of benevolence. Because it's so easy to turn away from another's grief. But they walk towards that. They walk in love with that person. And I say that's an act of love. So let's awaken our heart. Let's awaken our hearts. Let's awaken our heart of this community to be that embodiment of love to our neighbours, to the world around us. Let's flood the hearts of this community with a radical love that amplifies empathy, reverence, compassion, care, cooperation, and purpose. I read last week that Elon Musk said that compassion and empathy are the problem of Western civilization. Empathy is a problem for Western civilization. What the hell? Empathy is the basis of a good, caring, benevolent, loving relationship. It is not a problem. Yes, we always have to have empathy for ourselves when we have empathy for others. We cannot be an emotional doormat for others. But empathy is not the problem. I believe we come to religious community, we come to have our hearts opened and our minds enlightened. And I invite you to think, how do we transform something? To truly transform something, you need to replace it with its opposite. In a culture, we need to replace the fear, the hatred, the blaming, the distrust and the hostility. We need to replace that with its opposite. And when I look at what the opposite of all those things are, I think it's to hold others in love. If not love, then what? I spent a lot of time thinking about that this week. What can you replace if not love? It's not fear. It's not hatred. It's not being an individual and disappearing into ourselves. We are relational beings. And love and empathy and compassion call us to be in relationship with one another. So yes, centering love is more important now than ever. And that's our religious calling as Unitarian Universalism. It's not when loving is easy, it's when loving is difficult. That's what our calling is. And Martin Luther King Jr. said that power without love is reckless and abusive. And love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. And justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. And justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. So may we use our power lovingly and our love powerfully. May we be the incarnation of our highest values of justice, love, kindness, and humility in this hurting world and bring healing to it. And in doing so, let us do the rebuilding of trust, the rebuilding of love. Provide the healing and be the bringers of love that our world desperately needs. But this cannot be a passive love. It needs to be a love that's courageous, fierce, and committed at this time. I've mentioned before that we need to put a spiritual identity at the center of ourselves, not just a political one. It needs to be a spiritual, religious identity. And that love needs to be a fierce, courageous, committed love. The Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend David Rankin, says, a religion that promises a life without tension, a life without conflict, a life without suffering, is a religion of passivity, a religion of mediocrity, a religion of insignificance. Everything worth doing in the world is a desperate gamble, a game of chance where nothing is certain. What is love? Is it not a wild and sublime speculation that can end in ecstasy or despair? What is courage? Is it not a hazardous risk of fortune that can end in victory or defeat? What's adventure? Is it not a blind leap in the dark that can end in joy or disaster? What is faith? Is it not a prayerful flip of a coin that can end in heaven or hell? If I refuse to blame the game, if I refuse to risk myself, if I refuse to throw the die, I am never really alive. I am then only flesh, baking in the sun on a middling plateau with no view of the valley and no road to the peak. Those are the words of Reverend David Rankin. So this is no time for a passive, mediocre religion, but a religion of courage, faith, adventure, and yes, fierce, committed love. And what does our faith require of us at this time? What does Unitarian Universalism require of us at this time? And whenever I think of that, what's required of us, I think of my time at the Unitarian Universalist Church in San Francisco. And I had two scripture passages on the wall. And one is from Micah 6:8 and said, what does the Lord require of you? To do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. And that was in reply to a question in the Hebrew scriptures that the ancient Jews asked how they should worship God. To do justice, to love kindness, to walk humbly with your God. That calls me, and I invite it to call us, to be active and do justice, be passionate embodiments about kindness, and to move with humility through life while living fully into our ideals. The purpose of religious community is to pump love through each of us and then through the wider community and the bodies of our neighbours that we come across every day, as Liz mentioned, around her meditation. The choir sang in that incredible song they just performed. We open our minds, we open our hearts, we reach out our hands. And I'd like to finish with this meditation by Reverend Christine Robinson. I invite you to remember that it's your hands to do the work of love in this world. These hands may hold another's hands. These hands may type emails to politicians, sign cards of consolation and congratulations. These hands may patiently teach, quilt works of beauty, or write words urging peace. These hands may bathe children, feed elders, nurse the ill, work the earth, organize communities. These hands may clasp in prayer, open in release, grasp in solidarity, clench in righteous anger. These hands are God's hands. Your hands, our hands, a great mystery of flesh and intention, a great potential of embodied love. Those are the words of Reverend Christine Robinson. We are the incarnation of the divine. We are the incarnation of our UU principles and highest ideals of the world. And yes, love is enough for this time. Because if our country, our world is to survive its struggles, uncertainty, and complexity, it needs more people who are capable of loving the world as it is, while holding steadfast to the vision of what it could be. We need to be the embodiment of love, an inclusive love without boundaries or barriers. We can be the vessels of divine love for agape, in the sense of the love that creates goodness in the world, beginning with goodness towards ourselves and our neighbours.